Rockstar posted an update for the GTA trilogy regarding patch version 1.03 on the 30th of November, and saying it's a lot would still be considered an understatement. They released the GTA trilogy, the definitive edition, on November 11 with disastrous results. Bugs everywhere, ugly character models, and just downright a disrespectful attempt for a quick cash grab. In my experience, the bugs and glitches were so apparent that it made it difficult to even play through the entire game at times. But with the bug fixes that was released with this patch, playing the game felt a bit better, but ultimately led to a mess that made it definitively impossible for me to finish. I definitely won't be able to cover everything, as I'll explain later in the final point, but comment down below what else I've missed and what your experiences were. But enough about that, and let's dive into what has actually changed with the updates. Now, one of the most noticeable changes that they've implemented was adding fog, especially when you are viewing the world in a high altitude. Before, you can clearly see everything and kinda diminishes the immersion and sense of scale that the game originally exhibited. Now, I gotta say it looks a lot better than before, together with the rain effects which they were able to fix, and with both elements combined, it creates a much less exposed scenery, further improving the sense of scale of the world, as well as providing an atmospheric experience whenever you're flying during a storm. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be consistent with its effect. Sometimes you can see the fog and sometimes you can see everything. You now have the option to toggle this on and off on the graphics menu, but even with the option enabled, the effects sometimes can go unnoticed or not in effect at all. Another change would be the addition of a cinematic camera for all vehicles. Now, admittedly, I don't think a lot of people actually use this that often, but regardless, it is still a feature that a lot of people seem to have welcomed, and since it was absent prior from the update, a lot of players were understandably upset of its removal. Fortunately, they were able to bring it back, and players can now bask on riding their vehicles with its cinematic glory. On the topic of vehicles, CJ's face no longer obscures the camera when riding a vehicle in first-person mode while looking back, except for some. First off, one of the vehicles that were specified in the patch notes of which Rockstar claimed was fixed was the quad bike, and sure enough, I tried it and it seems to be true. However, for vehicles such as the Bandito, CJ's face still obscures the camera when in first person looking back, and some other vehicles seem to be the case also. It appears that the problem was rectified for select vehicles only and left others untouched. Continuing on the topic of vehicles, there appears to be a glitch when riding a motorbike. It disappears while driving in first-person mode when going upwards a ramp and landing on a bump, and then it enters cinematic mode from behind CJ. You would see that he is floating while in a stance as if he was riding a motorbike. This is more apparent when you are riding along in San Fierro because of the varying levels of its highways. The infamous disappearing bridge in the countryside has now been fixed. This was very disruptive in terms of exploration before, since the asset just disappears, making the player unable to discern the path of which was traversable. This is especially frustrating when it comes to races, as it halts the momentum of which the player might have given the fast-paced nature of the activity. So it's nice to see that they have restored the asset, allowing players to finish the race properly. However, a glitch can be found with the cinematic camera that might only be occurring in races. If you have the cinematic camera as your last camera setting from your previous vehicle, when you enter a race, the camera spasms like crazy. Although it fixes itself moments later, being greeted with a glitch like that after selecting a race can be dizzying. Numbers no longer appear superimposed in the jerseys of your allies. Before the patch, the numbers in the jerseys in a particular Grove Street NPC model had an appearance like it was superimposed on their shirt. It's a very minute detail, but you see so much of it during the early game that it later on becomes jarring and distracting as you start to notice it more and more. After the patch, the appearance of such superimposition is now gone, with the shirts on their models looking improved. Wide outlines during targeting someone can now be toggled on or off. A lot of players seem to have been annoyed with the fact that a white outline appeared when targeting someone before the patch. I personally didn't mind this, but I could understand why some players were frustrated. The white glow seemed unnatural and very distracting and could in some ways hamper the experience quite a bit. When the game launched, there were a lot of things that were missing or just removed. One of these was the burger hat from the burger shop lady who was there to take your orders. After the patch, she was able to get her hat back. Another thing that was missing was the mask when you were robbing some property in Los Santos. Before the patch, CJ had a weird distorted face like it was cramped for some reason. After the patch, they restored the mask making it feel more natural and fitting in the mission. But they still couldn't get the old guy to have his eyes closed while sleeping, so it just feels weird. Also, old Reece is old again. They've restored his look to make him more similar in the original version. Movement animations for CJ have been restored as well. In the original version, CJ had 3 movement animations depending on the level of his fat and muscle statistics. There were different animations for when CJ was slim, fat, and muscular while moving. In the definitive edition, for some reason, this particular group of details were missing or non-existent, and instead CJ moved as if he was slim regardless of his body type before the patch. Now that the patch has been applied, CJ now has 3 different movement animations depending on his body type. Speaking of things that are missing, there is still no user track player or the custom radio station. In the PC port of the original version, you had a user track player of which you can input your own selection of music in your computer and allow the game to scan them and have them play out while in a vehicle. Even after the patch, they still haven't brought this back. With a lot of songs being removed due to license expiration, the selection of songs, while phenomenal, are beginning to get quite repetitive. I can only listen to Horse with No Name or 2 Steps Forward, 2 Steps Back for so long. But there are also other songs that I thought would quite fit in my personal playthrough. Cause of this missing feature, I can't play Renai Circulation or Dango Kai Kozaku when driving by some ballas or killing criminals with my chopper. Animations are no longer cut when choosing and buying clothes. Before the patch, I thought the animations were cut as some sort of remedy to the issue that choosing and picking clothes in the original version was admittedly very slow. So for a second there, I kinda welcomed this change until I realized that the animation was cut for every kind of clothing item. Meaning, if I selected a watch wanting to try it on and see if it matches with my outfit, the animation would just cut right before I get the chance to see it, rendering the change completely pointless. And so bringing back the animations after the patch is relatively better than the previous one despite the fact that it's still slow. Also, even after the patch, cutscenes still have glitches such as cut and skip over voice lines.
My dad. You work fast, nigga.
You know I just got off the plane.
Well, that's a good thing we found you and retrieved the murder weapon.
That ain't my gun.
Don't bullshit me, Carl.
Yeah, don't bullshit him, Carl.
What the fuck you want from me this time?
When we want you, we'll find you. In the meantime, try not to gun down any more officers of the law.
Y'all can't leave me here. This baller's country.
I thought you said you was innocent, Carl. But you don't bang.
This is car 58.
See you around like a...
Oh shit. Here we go again. Worst place in the world. Rolling Heights baller country.
Finally, the biggest issue of all, it crashes when it saves. Now I don't know what kind of wizardry the developers have done here, but for some reason after the patch was applied, it now crashes when I save. It crashes when I save at a safe house, it crashes when I enter a cutscene because of the autosave, and it crashes whenever there is a checkpoint save. I can't finish the mission St. Mark's Bistro because I kept on crashing every time it tries to checkpoint save, and when I try to resume from the main menu, it just crashes again, making this game definitively impossible to finish. I tried reinstalling the game but to no avail, making me unable to even finish the game or play the game properly. And every time I exit the game whenever there's an attempt to save, there's always a cloud sync conflict which became very annoying as I needed to confirm each and every time. I don't know if this is only a problem on my end, but as it stands right now, I am at a state where I can't play the game properly or even finish it. So that about wraps the things I have noticed in playing the game. What are your thoughts on this, and if you've experienced something similar or different kinds of issues, or if I missed anything, drop a comment below and let me know. And as always, if you like the content, please make sure to like the video and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be updated on the next time I upload more videos. Until then, bye gamers!